Rock and Stone, everybody. The first big update for Deep Rock Galactic Rogue Core has just been announced, and here's everything that's going to be in it. First of all, the experimental branch is going to release on June 11th, which you'll have to request access to, and they said they'll release information on how that works later. And the actual update comes out June 17th. Alright, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this update, and first we'll talk about the timer. With the timer, they said there's going to be clearer feedback and readability for it, and there's going to be an optional numerical cooldown showing exactly when the Reaper worms appear. They also said they're going to add an assault pace selection, basically allowing you to decide how aggressive you want the waves to be on this timer. They said there will be 3 options: cautious, standard, and reckless, effectively acting as another difficulty selector. Now, I personally don't think we need another difficulty selector when we already have the depths. It just feels kind of redundant. But I understand why players wanted this, though I don't agree with the decision. They also said they're going to be reworking how you actually acquire these upgrades. Instead of all the players standing in a circle, now it's just going to be one player who can press a button on the REPD to give all the players their upgrades. They're also going to rework the shared upgrade system. The way they're doing this is actually pretty interesting in my opinion. What they're going to do is, instead of locking players out of selecting an upgrade, they're simply going to replace that slot with a new random upgrade. They're also going to make it so the guaranteed health upgrade no longer appears and is now just in the random pool of upgrades. Another thing they said they're going to be doing is removing the skip for health option and just adding it in with the other random upgrades. Now, when it comes to them removing the skip for health, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I will spoil something later in the patch notes, that they are going to be adding more red sugar to the caves to compensate for this. So that's something I'll just have to feel the vibe on. They also said they're going to be making it so all upgrades in a selection share the same rarity. Now this is going to be really interesting. I'm just going to have to see how this feels once the update comes out, because I don't know how to feel about it right now. Another thing they said they're going to do is to just review and rework the current upgrades that exist in the game, which is pretty standard. Alright, let's move on to some new content. So they're going to be adding 2 new weapons, one of which is a weapon we haven't seen before, and the other is the corrosive sludge pump from the original game. Now, the new weapon is called the Trident, and it's an energy shotgun, and it'll be in the starting weapon pool, so that'll be really cool to see. They're also adding a new flying enemy called the Voidkin Drifter. That enemy sounds really cool, and I personally think that we did need a new flying enemy in the game, even though people were saying that the focus should be somewhere else. I think it'll be really helpful to the variety. Another thing they said they're going to do is add a new core biome. They said they plan on doing this for every boss, and this update is going to be for the Ramok. They said that the Moloch Tua doesn't have its own core biome yet, but they plan on adding one soon. They also said they're going to be adding more than 12 new mining constructions to the mining facilities, so that'll bring a lot of variety, and I think that's going to help a lot. Another minor thing they said they're going to change is they're going to add some new deployments, just for some greater variety. And then also they said they're just going to do a weapon balance pass, just to iron out all the kinks and make sure everything's up to standard. They said that some of the hard-to-master guns are going to be in the workbench pool instead of the starting pool, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I think it's good to have a large starting pool, considering that there's not that many weapons in the game as it stands. But once we get a lot more weapons in the game, I think it'd be fair to have some of them in a separate pool. Alright, and the second to last thing we're going to get to is some miscellaneous changes. So here, they said they're going to add an extra munitions crate to each level, just to help with the ammo economy a little bit. Here's what I talked about earlier. They said they're going to be adding more red sugar to the caves to offset that skip for health option being removed. They're going to add some new music. They're going to add free leaf lovers at the bar. And they're going to add some UI adjustment. It looks like stacking of enhancements. I assume they're talking about a UI adjustment there. They're going to have some auto-equip, the highest tier enhancement. And they're going to finally, like everyone's been requesting, have auto-sprint. And the last thing to talk about is a new free cosmetic DLC called First Responder. So I'll love to see what that looks like when it comes out. But overall, I think these are good patch notes. I think everything's looks like it'll be in a better spot. though I am curious to get my hands on it when the time comes, and I hope I can get into that closed access experimental branch to put out a video on that when the time comes, because that will be great to see. I'm super excited for this and the future of this game, but I'll continue to make new videos on the news for this game, and I'm going to be streaming it typically around 10 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, so feel free to stop by for those streams. Make sure to subscribe here on YouTube if you want to continue hearing my thoughts on these updates, and also just if you want to receive the news in general. Thanks for watching, everybody. Rock and Stone. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.